It was a quiet day in the Galactic Council chambers. Representatives from all over the galaxy gathered to discuss trade agreements and peace deals. But suddenly, everything changed. A loud, urgent alarm echoed through the vast halls. A message had come through, a distress signal. The Tarlik, an insectoid species known for their peaceful nature and advanced technology, had sent the message. The council members froze as the transmission began. The Tarlik's high-pitched voices, normally calm and measured, were filled with fear. "We are under attack," the message began. "The Dromak swarm is here. They are destroying everything. We need help. Please, someone help us." The Tarlik were a peaceful race. They had never been in a war, never had to fight for their survival. Their world, Vornis 7, was a beautiful place, full of tall, shimmering forests and deep, sparkling oceans. They had built their civilization slowly and carefully, never seeking to expand or conquer. Their only goal had always been peace and cooperation. But now, that peaceful world was being torn apart. The Dromak swarm was a nightmare. A massive biomechanical army that devoured everything in its path. They had destroyed dozens of planets, leaving nothing but ruins behind. Their ships, dark and cold like the void of space, would sweep through worlds, firing lasers, dropping bombs, and wiping out entire civilizations in mere hours. The Tarlik knew they were doomed if they didn't get help. The message reached the Galactic Council first. The Council, however, was hesitant. The swarm was too powerful, and no one had ever defeated them. The Tarlik were known for their wisdom, but they had no weapons, no army. The Council debated. Should they send a fleet to help the Tarlik? It was risky. The swarm could destroy them all. Some council members argued that the Tarlik should be left to fend for themselves. After all, they weren't part of any military alliance. But then one of the council members, a human representative named Admiral Jonas Vance, stood up. He had seen the destruction the Dromak swarm caused before. His eyes were cold and determined. "If the Tarlik need help," he said, "we will give it to them. The human fleet will go to their world and fight the swarm." The council murmured, unsure. Humans were known for their unusual way of thinking. They had no hesitation to go to war when needed. The idea of a full-on battle with the Dromak swarm was risky, even for them. But Vance's voice was steady. "The Tarlik have asked for our help, and we do not turn away those in need." The decision was made. Humanity's fleet would leave for Vornis 7 immediately. The message was clear. If anyone was going to fight the Dromak swarm, it was going to be the humans. And the swarm had no idea what was coming for them. The Terran fleet arrived in the Vornis 7 system 3 days after Admiral Jonas Vance gave the order. From a distance, the human ships looked almost ordinary, at least when compared to the advanced, sleek designs of other races in the galaxy. But once you looked closer, you saw the difference. These ships weren't just built to travel through space. They were designed for war. Vance stood on the bridge of the flagship Aegis, looking out at the Tarlik homeworld. Vornis 7 was a beautiful planet, with lush green forests and blue oceans that sparkled under the sun. The Tarlik had lived here for centuries in peace. They never needed to fight. Until now. The Tarlik watched from below, eyes wide with awe and fear. They had never seen ships like these before. Human vessels were massive, covered in weapons, and designed for durability. The Aegis alone was the size of a city, with guns that could shatter moons and shields that could withstand the heat of a star. As the fleet descended into Vornis 7's orbit, the Tarlik ambassador, a tall insectoid named Strix, stepped forward. His voice was shaky as he spoke to Vance. "Are you sure you can stop the Dromak? We've never seen anything like them. They are machines without mercy." Admiral Vance looked down at the ambassador with calm, cold eyes. "Don't worry, Strix. Humanity doesn't fear machines. We fought worse. We will stop them." The Tarlik were not convinced. To them, war was a foreign concept, something their peaceful culture had never embraced. They believed in diplomacy, in talking things out, but the Dromek swarm didn't listen to words. They only understood destruction, and the Tarlik had no way to fight back. Vance turned to his crew. "Prepare for a strike on their fleet. We'll show them what happens when you mess with humanity." The human fleet moved quickly. They didn't wait for the swarm to come to them. They charged right into the heart of Dromek space, with the Aegis leading the way. The Tarlik, watching from their planet below, felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Humans were reckless, some said, but there was something else, something powerful about them. They didn't hesitate. They didn't falter. They simply moved forward with determination. When the humans encountered the first wave of Dromek ships, the battle was intense. The Dromek's dark, cold ships fired upon the human fleet, but humanity fought back fiercely. They launched explosive projectiles, fired laser beams, and sent out drones to disrupt the enemy systems. The humans were relentless, refusing to back down even when the Dromek ships outnumbered them. On the Aegis, Admiral Vance watched the chaos unfold with focused intensity. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Let's show them the price of attacking a Deathworlder." The Tarlik couldn't believe their eyes. Human ships, designed for battle, fought with unmatched skill and power. The Tarlik had never seen anything like it. These humans weren't just trying to protect themselves. They were going on the offensive, pushing the Dromek back with everything they had. And for the first time, the Tarlik began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the humans could save them after all. The battle raged in space, the sounds of explosions and the flashes of lasers lighting up the void. The human fleet, led by Admiral Jonas Vance, charged forward without hesitation. Their ships fired relentlessly, striking the Dromek swarm's ships with deadly precision. But despite their fierce efforts, the swarm kept coming. The Tarlik, watching from the safety of Vornis 7, could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans fought with such energy and ferocity, as if the idea of losing never even crossed their minds. But as the battle continued, the Tarlik began to understand just how dangerous the Dromek really were. For every Dromek ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear, like an endless tide of metal and death. Admiral Vance stood on the bridge of the Aegis, his hand steady on the control panel. His voice was calm, but every command he gave carried weight. "Report," he said to his communications officer. "We've taken out a few ships." "Admiral," the officer replied, eyes glued to the screen. "But they keep sending more. It's like they don't stop coming." Vance grunted, a slight frown crossing his face. He knew this was going to be harder than expected. The Dromek swarm wasn't just a force of machines. It was a system of destruction, a race that existed only to consume and conquer. They didn't think. They didn't feel. They only destroyed. "Prepare the secondary fleet," Vance ordered. "We need reinforcements before they overwhelm us." The Aegis moved swiftly, dodging Dromek laser fire as the human fleet maneuvered into a new formation. It was a brutal, aggressive strategy, one that pushed the Dromek into a corner, forcing them to react instead of attack. But the Dromek were relentless. They adapted quickly, sending drones to swarm the human ships and adapt to their every move. For the Tarlik, it was like watching a nightmare unfold. The Dromek were everywhere, and even though the humans were fighting back with all their might, it seemed like the swarm would never stop. But the humans were used to fighting wars. Unlike the Tarlik, who believed in peace, the humans had seen the horrors of true combat. They had faced death many times before, and each time they had come out victorious. This time would be no different. The first Dromek ship to approach the Aegis fired its massive weapon, sending a beam of deadly energy toward the human ship. It hit with a terrifying force. But the Aegis didn't buckle. The ship's shields flared brightly, absorbing the blast, and the crew barely felt the impact. The Tarlik watched in amazement. The Dromek's weapons were powerful, but the human technology was even stronger. "Return fire," Vance shouted. The Aegis fired back, its weapons lighting up the darkness of space. The Dromek ship exploded in a fiery ball, its debris scattering like confetti. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The humans were making progress. Still, the Dromek were not easily defeated. New ships arrived, their dark forms cutting through space like predators closing in on their prey. But the humans weren't backing down. With every ship they destroyed, more joined the fight. For the first time, the Tarlik began to see the true power of humanity. It wasn't just their weapons. It was their spirit, their willingness to fight to the end, no matter the odds. As the battle continued, the Tarlik realized something important. If anyone could stand up to the Dromek swarm, it was the humans. And they were just getting started. The battle between humanity and the Dromek swarm was not going as easily as Admiral Vance had hoped. Despite the human fleet's powerful weapons and skilled pilots, the Dromek continued to come. They adapted quickly, using new strategies and overwhelming numbers to attack the humans from all sides. The fleet was taking damage, and Vance knew it wouldn't be long before they were in real trouble. On the bridge of the Aegis, Vance stood still, staring out at the endless swarm of Dromek ships closing in on them. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "We need to change tactics," he said, his voice low and steady. "We can't keep fighting them the same way. We need something the swarm won't expect." His officers looked at each other, confused. The Dromek were machines, and they fought with brutal precision. What could the humans do that would be different? "We need to make them think we're weaker than we really are," Vance continued. "That'll give us the edge." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a signal to the fleet. Tell them to pull back. We'll draw them in." The officers were unsure, but they trusted their commander. They quickly relayed the orders. Soon, the human fleet began to retreat, moving back toward the edge of the system. The Dromek, sensing victory, charged forward, their ships closing in on the humans without hesitation. To the Tarlik watching from the planet below, the retreat looked like a disaster. "Are they running away?" Syrinx, the Tarlik ambassador, asked, his voice filled with worry. "They can't be. They can't leave us now." Vance's voice came through their comms, steady and reassuring. "We're not running, Syrinx. We're setting a trap." The Tarlik were confused, but they had no choice but to trust the humans. The Dromek didn't know the humans as well as they did. The swarm had never faced a species like humanity, a species born and raised in the most dangerous environment in the galaxy, Earth. Humans didn't give up easily, and they didn't follow the rules that other species did. They fought dirty, they used their surroundings to their advantage, and they never stopped fighting. As the Dromek ships followed the retreating fleet, Vance knew the time had come. "Now," he said, his voice sharp. The human fleet turned quickly, catching the Dromek off guard. It was a sudden shift, a surprise attack that left the Dromek unprepared. The Aegis and the rest of the fleet unleashed everything they had. Missiles, plasma blasts, and railgun fire, all aimed at the unsuspecting Dromek ships. The first few Dromek ships were destroyed almost instantly, their thick armor no match for the power of the human weapons. The rest of the swarm hesitated, unsure of how to respond. This wasn't the fight they had expected. The humans weren't running. They were leading the Dromek into a deadly trap. The Tarlik watched in awe as the human fleet fought with a brutal, calculated strategy that none of them could have imagined. The humans had tricked the Dromek into thinking they were weaker, and now they were paying the price for underestimating humanity. The Dromek swarm, once so sure of their victory, now found themselves being picked apart, one ship at a time. The humans had turned the tables, and for the first time since the battle began, it felt like the tide was shifting. Vance, standing on the bridge of the Aegis, smiled slightly as he watched the enemy ships fall. "This is how we fight," he said quietly. "This is how Deathworlders win." The Tarlik could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans didn't just fight to survive, they'd fought to win. And now, the swarm was starting to feel the cost of underestimating humanity. The battle in space had been fierce, But now the war was about to reach the surface of Vornis 7. The Dromak swarm had landed, their massive, armored transport ships descending from the sky. The ground trembled as the first wave of Dromak forces made their way across the planet. The swarm was terrifying. Robotic soldiers marching in perfect formation, unstoppable and relentless. They didn't stop to think. They didn't hesitate. They simply moved forward, destroying anything in their path. On the surface of Vornis 7, the Tarlik were terrified. They had no military, no weapons, and no way to fight back. They had always relied on peaceful negotiation and cooperation, but this time there was no talking. The Dromak didn't care for peace. The Tarlik watched as the swarm destroyed their cities, burning their forests, and flattening their beautiful structures. Everything the Tarlik had worked for, everything they had built, was being wiped out in an instant. But the humans weren't going to let that happen. Admiral Vance, along with his team of ground commanders, knew they couldn't let the Dromak take the planet. The fleet in space was important, but if the swarm wasn't stopped on the ground, Vornis 7 would fall. The humans had experience in battles like this. Earth had been a dangerous world for humans for thousands of years. They were used to fighting on the surface of their planet, where dangers lurked in every corner. And that experience was about to give them the upper hand. "Ready the drop zones," Vance ordered. "We'll take the fight to them." Human soldiers, clad in advanced exoskeletons, were ready to drop onto the planet's surface. The Aegis's landing bays opened, and dozens of human assault craft flew out. They sped toward the ground, heading for the Dromak's landing zones. The Tarlik watched in shock and awe. The humans were not just fighting. They were coming for the enemy. They weren't afraid of the Dromak's numbers, their strength, or their cold, emotionless machines. They were going to face them head-on. The first human troops hit the ground, and the battle began. The Dromak swarmed toward them, their mechanical bodies marching in perfect coordination. But the human soldiers weren't scared. They had been trained for moments like this. They knew how to fight in a world that wanted to kill them. Earth was a dangerous place, filled with wild animals, harsh environments, and deadly threats. And humans had learned to survive. The humans fought with everything they had: guns, grenades, and energy weapons. The exoskeletons they wore enhanced their strength, speed, and agility, turning them into near-perfect killing machines. Human soldiers ran through the battlefield, dodging Dromak fire and launching attacks with brutal precision. Each soldier was trained for close-quarters combat, able to fight even when surrounded by the enemy. The Tarlik, unable to believe what they were witnessing, realized something important. Humans weren't like them. They didn't wait to be destroyed. They didn't run or hide. When faced with danger, humans fought back. They fought not just to survive, but to win. For the first time, the Tarlik felt hope. Maybe they weren't going to lose everything after all. Maybe, just maybe, the humans could save them. As the battle continued, the Dromak forces began to slow. They had never faced anything like this. Humans who refused to back down, who fought with the strength of 100 species. And the Tarlik saw something else, something they had never imagined. The humans weren't just fighting for victory. They were fighting for each other. And that made all the difference. The battle on the ground was fierce. Human soldiers fought with everything they had: guns, knives, and energy weapons. The Dromak swarm, relentless and efficient, didn't hesitate. Their machines marched in unison, firing at anything that moved. But the humans were not backing down. They had trained for this. They had fought in worse conditions, on deadlier worlds, and survived. The humans were not like other species. When faced with destruction, they fought back, and they fought to win. Admiral Vance watched from his command center, his mind focused. The battle in space was going well, but the real test was here, on the surface of Vornis 7. The Dromak were powerful, but they were not invincible. And the humans knew how to fight on their own terms. "Report," Vance said, his voice calm but firm. The officer at his side quickly checked the screens. We've made progress, Admiral. The ground forces are pushing the Dromek back, but they keep sending reinforcements. They're not giving up. Vance nodded. The Dromek were relentless, but they were also predictable. The machines did not think. They only followed orders. That was their weakness. Humans, on the other hand, were unpredictable. They could adapt, change tactics, and outsmart their enemies. That's what made them dangerous. The human soldiers had started to drive the Dromek back, but there was still a long way to go. Vance's mind raced as he thought of his next move. If they wanted to end this battle, they needed to break the Dromek's will to fight. The key was their command center. If the humans could take it down, the Dromek would lose their coordination. They would fall apart. Prepare the assault team, Vance ordered. We're going to take out their command center. The officers nodded. The plan was risky. The Dromek command center was well guarded, but the humans had no other choice. They had to strike hard and fast. On the ground, the human soldiers were ready. They had been fighting for hours, but they were still strong. They had the advantage of knowing their enemy and understanding what it took to survive. They didn't need superior numbers. They needed strategy, and the humans were experts at that. As the human assault team made its way toward the Dromek command center, they encountered resistance. Dromek soldiers, with their cold, emotionless eyes, came at them in waves. But the humans kept moving forward. They fought their way through the Dromek ranks, using explosives and precise fire to break their lines. The closer they got to the command center, the harder the Dromek fought. But the humans were relentless. They didn't stop. They pushed through, their determination stronger than the enemy's cold machines. Finally, they'd reached the command center. It was a massive structure, surrounded by Dromek soldiers and defenses. The humans didn't hesitate. They launched their final assault, taking down the defenses one by one. The Dromek tried to regroup, but it was too late. The human forces breached the command center's walls and stormed inside. With one final explosion, the Dromek command center was destroyed. The Dromek forces, now without leadership, began to break apart. The machines lost their coordination, their lines shattered. The humans had won. On the surface of Vornis 7, the Tarlik watched in awe. The humans had done it. They had not only held their ground, they had defeated the Dromek swarm. The battle was over. The Tarlik were safe. And for the first time, the Tarlik realized something important. The humans were not just warriors. They were saviors, and they had saved them. The ground was quiet now. The battle was over. The once thriving cities of the Tarlik were in ruins, but the Dromek swarm was no more. The Dromek forces, disorganized and broken, had scattered, their leadership destroyed. The human soldiers stood victorious, but they didn't celebrate. They had come here to save the Tarlik, and their mission was now complete. Admiral Vance walked across the battlefield, his boots crunching on the charred earth. He was tired, his face marked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes were sharp. The battle had been won, but the war had taken its toll. The planet's surface had been scared, and the Tarlik people had lost so much. Strix, the Tarlik ambassador, walked up beside him. His normally elegant form was slumped, his antenna drooping in exhaustion. The Tarlik had never known war like this. They had never experienced the pain of seeing their world torn apart. But now, as he looked at the humans, he saw something different, something he hadn't expected. "Admiral," Strix said, his voice low, "you've saved us. We owe you everything. But our world is gone. How can we rebuild after this?" Vance looked at the ambassador, his face solemn but resolute. "You'll rebuild. It's what humans do. You've been through worse. You have a strong people. The destruction here isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's how you rise up that matters." Strix looked at the destruction around them, the ruined buildings, the scorched earth. It seemed impossible. But then he looked at the humans. They had fought for him, for his people, And they had won. Maybe, just maybe, Vance was right. The Tarlik could rebuild. They had seen what it meant to fight for survival, and perhaps that strength would carry them forward. "We will try," Strix said, his voice still uncertain but filled with determination. Vance nodded. "That's all anyone can do. The humans have seen their cities fall, their families destroyed, and they still get up and fight. You can do it too." Meanwhile, the human soldiers were already organizing cleanup operations. They began to help the Tarlik survivors, clearing debris and providing medical aid. The Tarlik were amazed. The humans weren't just fighters. They were helpers. They didn't leave anyone behind. Even in the midst of destruction, the humans worked side by side with the Tarlik, offering a hand when it was needed most. It was a strange sight. The humans who had come to fight now stayed to help rebuild. They were not just warriors. They were protectors, healers, and builders. The Tarlik had never seen anything like it. As the days passed, the humans continued their work. They helped rebuild cities, clear the land, and provide supplies. They worked tirelessly, refusing to leave until the Tarlik were safe. In a strange way, the humans had taught the Tarlik a new kind of strength, not just the strength to fight, but the strength to rebuild, to survive, and to rise again. And so the people of Vornis 7 began to heal. The scars of the battle would remain, but the Tarlik now understood something they hadn't before. True strength was not just in the ability to destroy. It was in the will to keep going, to keep fighting, and to help others along the way. For the first time in a long while, the Tarlik believed they could overcome the darkness, and it was thanks to the Deathworlders, the humans who had saved them. Weeks passed since the battle. Vornis 7 was still recovering from the devastation, but something had changed. The once quiet world was now buzzing with activity. The Tarlik were rebuilding, but they weren't doing it alone. The humans had stayed, offering help in any way they could. And with every passing day, the Tarlik grew stronger. Admiral Vance stood on the balcony of a newly rebuilt building, looking out at the city below. The sky was clear, and the once scorched earth was now covered in new life. The Tarlik were planting crops, rebuilding homes, and setting up schools. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And that, in Vance's eyes, was the most important thing. He wasn't alone. Strix, the Tarlik ambassador, stood beside him, his antenna raised in quiet pride. The Tarlik had lost so much, but they had gained something too: hope. It was a strange feeling for them, something they had never truly known before. But now, thanks to the humans, they felt like they could face the future. "I never thought it would be like this," Strix said, his voice filled with wonder. "You came here to fight, but you stayed to help us rebuild. You showed us what it means to be strong." Vance nodded. "Strength isn't just about fighting. It's about what you do after the fight is over. Anyone can destroy. It takes real courage to build, to heal, and to move forward." Strix considered the human's words. He had always thought of strength as something that came from power, from the ability to defeat an enemy. But now he understood. Strength also came from kindness, from helping those who needed it most, and from never giving up, no matter how hard things got. The Tarlik people had begun to change. They no longer saw strength only in their military or their technology. They saw it in the humans, how they had fought for them, helped them, and stayed by their side. The humans had given them something more than victory. They had given them a future. As the days turned into months, the relationship between the humans and the Tarlik grew stronger. The Tarlik learned from the humans, adopting their ways of working together, of overcoming challenges, and of building a better tomorrow. In turn, the humans learned from the Tarlik, discovering new technologies, new ways of thinking, and new perspectives on peace. The planet Vornis 7 was becoming a symbol of hope for the galaxy. It was a place where two very different species had come together, fought side by side, and built something new. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. One day, Vance found himself standing in front of a group of young Tarlic children. They were excited and full of energy, their bright eyes wide with curiosity. They had never seen the humans before, and to them, the humans were something new, something different. But they didn't see them as enemies. They saw them as friends. Strix watched from a distance, his heart filled with pride. The Tarlic were no longer afraid of the future. They had seen what humanity was capable of, and now they believed that they, too, could make a better world. The humans had saved them, but now they were showing them how to live. And the Tarlic were ready to learn. Months had passed, and the recovery on Vornis 7 was well underway. The planet, once ravaged by war, was now filled with the sound of rebuilding. The Tarlic had worked hard to restore their cities, and the human soldiers had stayed to assist. Together, they had brought the planet back from the brink of destruction. The scars of war were still visible, but the Tarlic were learning to look past them. Admiral Vance stood on the balcony of a newly rebuilt building overlooking the city. The sky was bright, and the air smelled fresh. Below, Tarlic children played, laughing and learning from their human allies. They had grown up in a time of fear and destruction, but now they were growing up in hope, side by side with their human friends. Strix, the Tarlic ambassador, joined Vance on the balcony. His antennae twitched with excitement. "I never thought I would see this day," he said. "The children are no longer afraid. They look to the future with hope." Vance nodded, his eyes scanning the city. "You've come a long way, Strix. But it's not just about surviving. It's about thriving. That's what humans do. They don't just survive. They make the world better." Strix smiled, his heart full of pride. He had never understood humans fully. He had seen them as warriors, always ready for battle. But now he saw them as something more. They were builders, helpers, and most importantly, friends. They had shown the Tarlic a new way of thinking, a new way of living. The Tarlic had learned a lot from the humans. They had learned how to fight back when they were cornered, how to rebuild after everything was lost, and how to never give up. But they had also learned something else. They had learned the importance of community, of working together, and of always pushing forward, no matter how hard life got. One day, a ceremony was held in the heart of the city. Tarlic leaders and human officers stood side by side, marking the end of the war and the beginning of a new era. Strix stood at the front, holding a small ceremonial orb. He turned to Vance, his voice filled with gratitude. "Admiral Vance, on behalf of the Tarlic people, I want to thank you and your people. You didn't just save us. You gave us a chance to rebuild. You taught us how to rise again, how to live with hope. We are forever in your debt." Vance stepped forward, his face serious but kind. "It wasn't just us. We fought together, side by side. The Tarlic are stronger now, and so are the humans. We've created a bond that can't be broken. What we've started here can be a lesson for the whole galaxy. It's not about power. It's about friendship, unity, and the willingness to stand up for what's right." The crowd cheered, their voices echoing across the city. It was a celebration of the new future they were building, a future where humanity and the Tarlic were not enemies, but allies. Together, they had faced a common enemy and had come out victorious. But even more important, they had learned to live together, to work together, and to care for each other. As the sun set over Vornis 7, Vance looked out at the horizon. The future was bright. There would be challenges ahead, but humanity had shown the galaxy that even in the darkest times, there was always hope. And as long as they stood together, they would face whatever came their way. And that was the legacy of humanity, to fight for what was right, to never give up, and to always help those in need.